Alright, so did plyometric landing and basically the benefits of either absorbing the landing or landing with stiffness. So, this is Yuri Vergoshansky. Yeah. Basically, he was the inventor of true plyometrics. What we consider plyometrics now is kind of a total different thing. It's kind of jump training, but that's more the shot method. And the basic reasoning for plyometrics, or the introduction of plyometrics, is that it's a form of explosive training, use increased speed, quickness, power. Most sports skills are trained in that explosive manner, so that you have to train in that explosive manner to duplicate the conditions, and then basically you transfer what you did in the weight room, your increased strength, into your speed and explosive power. And it basically goes from an involuntary stretch to amplify your muscle contraction. So there's a bunch of reasons for plyometrics. Improving the reactive ability of the nerve muscle apparatus. So basically a quick turnover of landing and then being able to go right back into another concentric contraction. The Golgi tendon organs, what they do is they monitor tension. So let's say on a depth drop, if you're going from too high, your muscles would shut off because they'd realize there's too much force, I can't handle this, I don't want the muscles to get injured. So they shut that off. So what plyometrics does is it basically increases that threshold where you can still turn around and do a concentric action without your muscle shutting off. So although it prevents muscle damage, it helps with sports and bone development. The other proprioceptor is muscle spindles, and what they do is they figure out how much force you need to produce whatever action you're trying to do. So if you can potentiate them, then you can get a greater reaction out of them. You train them to work on reflexes. So what you do is, like, your muscles can make a reflex into a greater action. You got to figure out how to do that. And then joint stiffness. So if you translate your muscles, or the force in your muscles, you absorb everything, you're going down, that's not joint stiffness, that's more not laxity, but taking force in your joints. What that does is load your muscles, not your tendons. The problem with this is that your muscles are a lot less efficient at transferring energy. So if you can make your joints stiffer, you then make your tendons able to amplify that force. So the first thing, absorbing the landing. There are benefits to it. So it puts the force on the muscles, takes it away from the tendons. The reasoning that people would do this is ACL prevention. So Justin Hunter, season changed when he got hurt. Not that everything that you do can change it, but if you learn how to absorb the right way, hopefully those injuries won't happen as much. So basically what you do, injuries occur from a few different things. So either if your knees go in, if your knees rotate, or if basically you land without bending your knees. You land straight up from a 36-inch vertical, you're probably not going to do very well. So if you absorb the landing, it puts more of the stress on the hamstrings. So basically, if you don't absorb, and the problem with everything I looked at, nothing actually gave a good angle for knee flexion. They say an optimal knee flexion. So I don't know what you choose to be your optimal knee flexion. But basically, you can get hurt when the quadriceps activate and the knee is near full extension, or then with a small knee angle, it's basically like the worst situation for ACL injury in a satchel plate. There's a few different things with valgus that are hurted, but basically don't land straight knee, essentially. Now landing with stiffness is basically what happens is the muscles don't yield. You got to figure out how to absorb the force by keeping your muscles tense, essentially, so that the tendons actually do the work to stop the eccentric motion, turn turn the different phases into concentric faster. And then there's 3 different performance enhancement capabilities. Basically, tendons don't lose energy as quickly as muscles do. Muscles are really inefficient, essentially, at trying to take force and put it back into something else. The other thing is that when you bend your legs just a little bit, instead, okay, so we'll go two separate demonstrations. With an optimal knee bend, you're here, and you're landing right about here. This is kind of like where your muscles are right at that optimal range. If you absorb and put all the force on your muscles, you're probably going to be sitting into a position right down here, which is not optimal for your actual recoil, putting it back into the concentric thing. Then the other problem is when you absorb force through your tendons, all that stuff goes really quickly through your tendons. Your actual muscle fibers change length a little bit slower, which helps with the force-velocity relationship. The slower it is, the more force you can actually produce. And then during stretch shortening cycle movements, the contractile elements, so muscles, actually work as a force generator at low velocities, and then the tendon structures amplify that and make it a better concentric action. So then depth jumps. Going from landing with stiffness, going into a second jump. This is really a lot of Yuri's stuff. Basically, you have to switch your muscles quick. Okay, you can do this two separate ways, or you can think about it two separate ways. You can think about it as a master athlete who has learned how to absorb force quick, turn it around and go. Or you can think about it, I guess, as the even though it's kind of considered a beginner here, the other thing is that knee flexion. So you want to go one more, and I'll kind of explain it and come back to it. So red is the beginning sportsman. What he's doing, if he does a depth jump, he falls down and he can't absorb as quickly. So his knees bend really quick. It takes him more time than to shoot out of his motion. That master athlete who has learned to absorb force with his tendons, essentially, only bends his knees, so much, and is able to get out of his jump quicker. So basically, he's more efficient at doing what he's trying to do. You can go back one, please. So again, the theory is you only need optimal knee flexion. Then turn around and get going. This is kind of like the benefit of landing stiffness. We're going to jump ahead 2 slides. All right. So then that fast active takeoff, and then Yuri says that it's necessary to land resiliently on the front portion of the foot, not so much the toes, but more of just the ball of the feet. And then, again, optimal. The only problem with optimal is that no one defines what optimal is. So, all right, can you pull that up? I don't do that. Sorry. Good. Awesome. That's cool. No worries.
I bet it doesn't have internet.
No, that's fine. I wish I had something to show you. But anyway, what that's trying to show is in a depth jump, what you're doing is instead of dropping off the box, absorbing, and trying to load, now you're using all muscles. That's not really a stretch shortening cycle at all, really, and it's really inefficient. So if you do it the way that they're showing is, as you land, you already have figured out, or you've already put yourself into that landing position before you land. So you're landing here, and then you're going right away. So you're kind of tensed up, right? Turns your eccentric almost off, gives you a slight isometric, and then the concentric is more powerful. Again, not necessarily injury prevention, but it's going to give you a faster sports reflex. And then I just did two different studies. Basically, people looked at weight training versus plyometrics, and the weight training actually increased tendon stiffness, whereas the plyometric increased joint stiffness. Joint stiffness actually is a thing that helps with both squat jumps, counter movement jumps, and depth jumps. Basically because it's better elastic energy. And then the other one was single leg landing on ACL loading, because I was trying to give both things. Which one's actually going to be more beneficial? And they said all they did was tell people either land stiff or land soft, and it took away that shear force from the ACL. So essentially, at the bottom, it says, in more dynamic situations, greater knee flexion at impact may keep the ACL load between or below the injury threshold. So, one more. Give me one more. Actually, yeah, we'll do this one. So, go one more real quick, actually. I'll go to this and then I'll come back. So this, my thought is, it's kind of your decision as coach. You can either tell your athlete to land stiff, you're going to increase their ability to cut, jump, sprint, all that stuff. The problem is, they might not know how to land, which is the other thing. You could tell your athletes, land each time, absorb the force. They're probably not going to get hurt. They're probably not going to be as elite of an athlete, though. Now, if you have somebody who's already an elite athlete, maybe you just need to tell them how to not get hurt. So that's kind of where you need to figure that out as a coach. When I go back one slide though. What I have found, though, through different research is the way to figure out where you need to give them advice, or where you need to get them started, is you start from finding their depth vertical. So you go from like a 12-inch box. You drop off and they get their vertical. If you go up to an 18-inch box and they get a higher vertical, then you keep going. The first vertical that they don't get a higher one on, that's the first one they need to work on landing from. So like just Hunter. Let's say he could absorb force from 24 inches, but he can get 36 or 40. That's the problem, is he doesn't know how to land from those heights. So you get him to know how to land. Now he's not going to get hurt, but he can do his maximal jumps, especially at a game. And then the only problem is at the bottom, like it says, counter movement jumps, where you're actually, like in a game, you're jumping up for a football, you're catching. That's a lot different than just landing from a box. But you have to, either way, you have to teach your athletes how to land correctly. When they know how to land correctly and they're explosive, that's where you're going to get elite athletes who are hopefully going to stay injury free. So that's it.